Hey everybody, welcome to the 20-Minute Bible Study. I am Vince Miller. Today we're launching into a new 5-week series entitled 5 Virtues That Build Men. This is designed to be a starter series for this book right here, 30 Virtues That Build a Man. If you're leading a men's group or you're a participant in one, you need one of these books, so make sure and get one from the website today at beresolute.org. Today's topic is receptivity. You know, I'm not sure that we are as receptive to the truth and change and new ideas as we think we are. Because in my mind, I am a legend of willingness to change. Yet I believe over time, we learn not to learn, which is why we say it's hard to teach an old dog new tricks. There's another word for this though. It's stubbornness, and we become stubborn over a lifetime for a number of reasons. Here are 3. 1, embedded beliefs. 2, emotional blocks. Or 3, external rewards. Let me say those again. 1, embedded beliefs. 2, emotional blocks. Or 3, external rewards. And it is for these reasons that over time, we build a resilience to changing. And while resilience in most cases is a good thing, sometimes it can decrease our receptivity. Often this results in us building biases that we look to confirm. And this is where we only look for evidence to support pre-drawn conclusions. And the result is that in the end, we discover we prefer our truth over the truth, especially when the issue is emotionally charged, attacks rewards that we like, or threatens deep-seated beliefs that we have held on to for years. In the end, our non-receptivity is merely a listening problem. That's it. Nothing more, just a listening problem. And every one of us has a problem with listening as a man. We just manifest it differently than other guys. And this gets in the way of us becoming the man that I believe God wants us to be. And I believe that we have 3 predominant listening problems. 1, we're not willing to listen to the truth. 2, we hear the truth, but only partially. Or 3, we hear, but there are too many other competing voices out there. So when we come back, we'll be joined by a special guest and a good friend who will help us to discover how we can take steps in becoming more receptive as men.
Get your day started right. Sign up for the Men's Daily Devotional at mensdevo.org. That's mensdevo.org. They're short, sweet, and to the point. Read them and share them with the men you know. And get into God's Word daily.
Hey guys, welcome back. Glad to have you here. I'm joined today by John Koch. Thanks for being with us, bud.
Absolutely. Love to be here.
Yeah, so we're diving into 30 Virtues That Build a Man. Of course, this series is entitled 5 Virtues That Build Men, and we're starting with just lesson 1 on receptivity. Kind of teed it up a little bit for us today. John, you know, I love to think that I'm a very, very receptive person to truth, right? And we kind of know that we are not as receptive as we think we are, right? I would assume you probably also think you're a fairly receptive person.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I'm a pretty receptive person. At least I maybe fake it really well.
Yeah, we probably do. But I have to assume that there's things in your life that you necessarily probably don't want to do, right? I mean, was there something last week that you were unreceptive to doing that you want to share with the guys?
100%. I mean, for example, my wife is constantly trying to get me to work out, and I know I'm supposed to do that, but for whatever reason, and there's lots of them, I just have not gotten it into my routine. And I know it's important, and I know it means a lot to her because she wants me to live a long life and be there for her. I think that's one of her biggest concerns. She wants me to look good, yeah. I suppose for the vacations and all that. But yeah, that's just one thing I just have not done well lately.
Yeah.
Sure.
So you know,
one of many.
You know, I'm thinking of the questions obviously were taken from this book, but why do you think that you're unreceptive to her thoughts or feedback in that area? What's going on emotionally
Yeah.
or triggering a belief, or what do you think it is?
For me, I know it's 100% that I get so tied up in work. Like, I am so tunnel visioned. I'm a one thing kind of guy. When you give me something to do, or I get really like challenged by something and I lock onto it, like I'm thinking about it like 110% of the time, and everything else kind of loses its priority to me. So that's one thing and that thing is work. Like, I get really focused on work, and I use that as a excuse, I suppose. So that would be a one thing. And then other things is just the social pressures of many other things going on that I think the distractions maybe pull me away from doing that thing that is most important. It's like I think I heard it in a book once. It's sort of like these trivial many take you away from doing the vital few things that are actually important.
Yeah, that's well put. So it's a variety of things, it sounds like, but put simply, it's intense focus on urgent things that are clearly important to get done.
Yeah.
Right? Or social pressures coming from the world to engage, which then seems like it steals time away from this ability to do the things maybe that need to get done, or the ability even to listen to the truth.
Yeah,
right?
100%. There's just a lot, I guess, a lot of noise that. Yeah, and then a lot of fires, like you said.
Yeah, noise and fires. There you go. That's what it's all about. Noise and fires, right? You know, and receptivity, like we said in the intro, it's a listening problem at its core. It's just basically a listening problem. And, you know, funny, Jesus addresses this in Luke 8. You know, it's our text for this week. We're looking at the receptivity, and the receptivity is of the soils itself. So clearly in the text, the soil represents the human heart and our willingness to receive God's truth. And Jesus gives us these different kinds of soils. He says there's hard soil, there's rocky soil, there's thorny, and then there's good soil. And of course, the good soil is the one that actually produces something. In fact, it's the only one that actually produces something of any consequence that has an impact on the world.
Right.
But he's not talking about farming. He's using farming as an illustration, you know?
Yeah.
And he's trying to teach us how to be receptive as human beings to his truth. And it's funny the things that get in the way, right? You talk about intense focus on the things of this life or social pressures that choke things out. I mean, it seems that Jesus was referencing many of these things and kind of had categorized them. I mean, how does it make you feel when Jesus points out all these things?
How is this happening to men like 2,000 years ago? Like, what's up with that? And it hasn't gotten through, like, to us. It hasn't gotten through to me. And it's been this many years. We should have figured this out by now.
Yeah,
like,
right.
I don't get it.
It's an old problem. It just repeats itself, right? So, and I think this is one of the biggest problems with spiritual growth in our life. And that's what Jesus is talking about, is growth. Yeah. The one thing that impedes spiritual growth is our ability to listen well with our heart to the truth.
Yeah,
right?
How do we do that? I mean, I wish I had the answers. I wish I knew how to be the good soil. I mean, I wish I knew the answers.
Yeah, well, and I think Jesus has got some of the answers in the text, actually, John. I think he wants us to willingly toil on that ground, to willingly dig deep into that ground, and to soften the hard places, to remove the rocks, to remove the weeds, because it's then that we become very, very fertile and actually produce something of consequence in our life. But it takes a lot of work to get off that hard ground, to get those rocks out of the soil, to keep the weeds from infesting and growing in our heart. And we have to address all those things along the way. And what I found is that I'm not just one of these types of soils at any one time. I'm actually all of them at one time.
Wow.
Does this make sense?
Yeah,
and
that's good.
I think this is what makes manhood complex,
Yep.
is that we're not just one category of soil. Like, you may be really good soil in one part of your life, right? You can probably think of one of those places.
Yeah.
But when it comes to receptivity to truth in other places of your life, you're probably harder. Right?
Working out.
Yeah, right. Maybe with working out or caring for your physical self, your physical well-being, which I think is what your wife is saying. It's good to care for your physical well-being. I believe Jesus wants us to do it. But you've got all these other competing things.
Yeah, I'm really receptive to making money.
Like really receptive to a lot of things in your relationship with your wife, right? Yeah. Like whether it be peace or relationship or, all kinds of things, right? Yeah. And in our life regarding leadership and making money, we're super receptive to those things, or doing fun things socially. But it's reorienting some of these things and softening our heart to them. It's difficult sometimes, right? So as you think about this, can you think about a place in your life, though, that you're really receptive to truth? Where's places in your life that you're really receptive to God's truth as a man?
Ooh, wow. Well, I just kind of go back to the career side of things. I hate to kind of keep going back to that, but I guess it's always so top of mind for me, and maybe it's just because it's ingrained to be a provider and stuff, but I feel like I am constantly trying to learn how to be better at providing for my family. So I feel like I am pretty receptive to truth in those areas of business. Whether it's a business mentor or a book I'm reading, I'm trying to let it soak in and sort of change the way that I act. So for example, one of the things that's just been top of mind for me lately is just like, what is the one thing or revenue, kind of the one revenue generating thing you can be doing today? Well, that for some reason I've let that settle, that seed sort of fall in that soil. I've wrestled with it and it's changed my behavior. It went from a belief to something I'm now actually behaving on or taking action on. So I feel like because I've taken action, it's a sign of me probably being pretty receptive to it. So
let me give you an example of if you're super receptive in that area, there's probably also an area of that where you might be thorny, rocky, or hard soil. So let me explain it this way. So I think most men do think about provision. They do think about providing and provision for their family. In fact, they probably overthink about it.
Oh,
right?
I do, 100%.
And you're saying that you're very receptive to God's call to provide financially, safety and security for your family as it regards provision. But there's another big piece of provision, and it's spiritual provision for the family. You see where I'm going?
I do.
And sometimes while we want to provide physically and financially and security and safety for our family, we leave off the spiritual provision, if ever engage with it, meaning I'm not leading my family spiritually, I'm not sharing devotions with my family, I'm not giving spiritual guidance.
I love this.
Right?
It's so
and
true.
So this is a hard place where we haven't really received truth, and it's a challenge because there are multiple components of provision itself.
Right.
So this is how we can be very, very receptive in some places toward provision, but then leave off a whole component where we may be hard, rocky, or thorny. I'm not going to assess that for you, only you can do that for yourself. But there's this other component of provision that's spiritual that we need to awaken in our masculinity, our manhood, part of our man journey, so to speak, that grows us towards being a better man as well. And I think this is what we lead off. And I think this is why we can be multiple soils all at one time regarding all kinds of different topics, right? This is the challenge for men. I think this is what Jesus was getting at in Luke 8. It's hard. It's an entire journey of discovering that there are places in our life that were hard, rocky, and thorny. The goal is to till that soil, to make it softer and allow our hearts to become more receptive by listening more carefully to the voice of God along the way. And there is where we become men. So I think the real outcome of this time today, John, is for you and I and men like us listening today to really evaluate where we're receptive and where we're not.
Yeah.
Right? Because
it's a long list for me.
Yeah. There's a lot of work probably to be done in our hearts, right? And it's just one step at a time, softening that hard, rocky, thorny soil and making it more receptive. But we do it by listening to the dialogue of our life, right? Yeah. Just like you just did with me right now.
Yeah, I can think of a lot of thorny areas as you're talking. So
yeah, exactly. So guys, as we close off our time today, I just want to encourage you to evaluate some places in your life that you are actually receptive and non-receptive to God's truth for you. And then just dial it up a little bit, notch it up and listen to where God's Spirit may lead you so that that soil becomes more receptive, not to your truth, to His truth. Thanks for being with us. We'll see you again next time.